Hey everybody, and welcome to the very first podcast episode from Bluegrass Soccer Academy. My name is Charlie Hamilton. This is Chris Dunham, and we will be your co-host this year. So, Chris, I went to you several months ago with this idea for a podcast, and it took a while, but here we are.
Yeah, when you brought it up to me, I don't know that we both really bought into the idea of doing a podcast.
Right.
I think it sounded fun. But when we started sharing ideas, I think we had similar perspectives of how to approach this. And I think our ideas have some merit to it. So I look forward to having our conversations and some debates about the game of soccer, but look forward to it.
Yeah, me too. Real quick, a little bit of background for me. I played club, played high school, things like that. Once I got into college and even out of college, I spent a lot of time officiating the game. I officiated for about 8 years. Never really thought to become a coach until I was walking off the field at Caldwell Middle School one night after a boys' game, and their AD approached me and asked me if I was interested in taking over the girls. And so, kind of went in green and kind of found my way. And so that was a lot of fun. Then after Caudill for 2 years, I joined you on your staff at Madison Central, where I eventually took over for you once you decided to step away from the game. And then when I left Central, I moved over to our club, to the club side of things, Madison United here in Richmond, and have been doing that ever since for about 4 years.
Yeah, I think our stories are a little bit similar. I played soccer since I was 5. My dad was actually my coach my first few years of playing. Went and played select when about 8 years old. High school played through as well, but took a different path. Did not play in college right away. I actually joined the service, did the Navy for 4 years, and then came back here to Kentucky, where I went to Eastern Kentucky University. And there I became the coach, player, and president for the men's club team, not collegiate level, but learned a lot of the background of coaching there, really my first experience. And then I took a job with a sports facility where I was training kids from 18 months all the way up to about, the high school age. So met a lot of great people there, a lot of great networking. Had some parents approach me about coaching their kids' club team. And so I joined MUSA there and had my first U10 team. Did that for maybe 3 seasons, or 3 years actually, and then left that to go to Madison Central to coach the girls varsity team. Did that for 10 years. Had a great time doing it, met a lot of great people. And then after 10 years, I had to walk away from that, and I am now coaching my son's team. He is 9 years old. He is also playing select, and so that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. So with Bluegrass Soccer Academy, we have some big goals, big future goals, but we thought the podcast would be a really good place for us to start. And so we just want to give you a quick glimpse into how we view using this podcast and using this stage to talk about soccer.
Absolutely. We want to promote the game. We're big lovers of it. We're passionate about the game. We have our favorite teams. We have our favorite players. And so we want to make sure everybody understands the game as much as we do. We also want to educate. Maybe you're a freshman in high school and want to know how to be recruited. Maybe you're a senior and you've already been recruited and you want some understanding of what to really expect as a collegiate player. Maybe you're a new coach, coaching your son's U16, want to understand some age-appropriate expectations. So players, coaches, we want to talk to parents as well. We want them to be educated. How to deal with coaches, how to also appropriate expectations for their kid. And, a 6-year-old and an 18-year-old are very different expectations, obviously. So we want to make sure people have good understandings and educate them on the game of soccer for themselves and for their kids.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get started. It's going to be something where we come at the game from a lot of different angles, but we want to focus more, as Chris said, on the players, on the coaches, on the parent, on even maybe a few officials, and not so much of the X's and O's of the game. So that's kind of going to be our background and our way about this, and let's get started. All right, before we get into our final segment here, Chris. I want to give everybody a real quick glimpse into next week's episode. We are lucky enough to get one of your former players on with us. Olivia Swafford is going to join us next week for a conversation. Talk to us a little bit about what the listeners and viewers can expect to hear in that.
Yeah, so Olivia played for me in high school, all 4 years as a varsity player. She got recruited and played at Southern Indiana University. And so we're going to have a discussion with her about her recruitment process. So maybe people that are currently in high school can learn what her steps were. We're also going to talk about after the recruitment process, things she dealt with, she learned, and also maybe some regrets. If she could go back and do it all over again, what would she do differently? And we're going to educate the younger players on what they're going to look for when they try to get recruited themselves.
That's awesome. I'm excited for that portion of the conversation to have her in and get somebody who's gone through that process. Get her thoughts on that.
And I think one thing that we learn as high school coaches is nobody really knows how to go through that process.
Definitely,
it's all brand new. We try to give our concepts as well, but when you have somebody that's been through it, I think it's a great learning process.
Yeah. So, big soccer tournament coming up.
Never heard of it.
The United States of America have released their 26-man roster.
Oh, I'm pumped.
I think for the most part, the roster was pretty much what everybody expected it was.
I agree. Yeah.
But there were a couple surprises that we'll kind of get into. I think maybe the best place for us to start would be what we kind of envision the starting 11 to look like.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It sounds like Matt Turner is going to be the starting goalkeeper,
which I agree with.
Despite he dealt with some injury issues about midway through the EPL season with Arsenal. Hasn't played a ton recently. Does that concern you at all?
It doesn't. I mean, his performance during Gold Cup qualifying matches, he was spectacular.
Yeah.
I think we know Zach Steffen was kind of the number one previously, but he also dealt with injuries and has really just now gotten back into the flow of things. So for me, I think Matt Turner is the natural choice here. He's much better than Horvath. I think Sean Johnson is a great backup as well, but I'm fully behind Matt Turner as the number one.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to skip the back line. I'm going to go to the midfield because I think the midfield is probably the strength of our team. If you had to look at a position group that you felt the most confident in on this team, it would be in that midfield. And I think we're looking at Weston McKennie. How do you say his name? We'll have to do this again. Musa. And then and then Tyler Adams. And the 4-3-3 that they run. I think that's the strongest field group that they have.
They're the workhorse of the squad. I mean, if they don't control the pace of the game, we're going to get overrun.
Yeah.
You got Tyler Adams, that's going to just be the guy that disrupts their offense.
Right.
McKinney does that a little bit as well, but he's a little bit more attacking side.
Yeah.
Musa is definitely an attacking guy. But I think if they work well together, I think we have a great chance of owning possession during the game.
Yeah.
And I think the rest is up to our forwards.
And to bounce off that, I think that's really important. I think that possession aspect of this is really underplayed because of our forwards. I don't see us scoring 6, 7, 8 goals a game. I think we're going to have to win games 1-2 to nothing, 2-1. I think you're going to have to win games like that because of that forward group. Of course, there is Christian Pulisic. We know his story.
Obviously.
Everybody knows his story. But outside of him, I was really interested to see who Berhalter brought on to fill those roles, those goal scoring roles. Ferreira and Aronson, I think, are going to be your starters alongside Pulisic, if I had to guess. But where are the goals going to come from if it's not Pulisic?
That's going to be very interesting. We all know if you don't score goals, you're not winning games. And then if you're depending on Pulisic to score all your goals, you're probably going to struggle because your teams like England, maybe even Wales, they're going to focus on taking him out of that game, which we've seen in the past where Pulisic didn't score a lot.
I mean, we've seen games where Pulisic doesn't even feel like he's on the field at times.
Right, absolutely. So, I agree. It'll probably be Ferreira at your center forward. I think it's going to be between Jordan Morris and Aronson on the other wing. I don't know. I'm for or against either guy there. As far as the backups, I think a guy you want to look out for, Gio Reyna. If he can stay healthy,
yes.
If he can stay healthy,
absolutely agree.
He is a young, talented individual that is just a playmaker. Yeah. And if he stays healthy, I think he's going to explode out of the World Cup.
Yeah. Couple names that to go along with that forward group. Again, I think it's the most important group for the United States. Unfortunately, I think it's our weakest group as well when it comes to those starting 11. But a couple names that in the research and the look and the talk that you hear, a couple names that popped up who didn't make the squad. The first one was Pepe. Am I saying that right?
I think you're correct. Yeah.
And he, I don't know a ton about him, but he's all abuzz on the internet, and it sounds like Berhalter just didn't think he was quite ready yet.
So, I think we all remember him scoring goals during qualifying.
Yeah.
The issue is that he's struggling in his league. And I think that's got Berhalter concerned. And I was surprised that Pepe didn't come on to our roster. I think he took Haji in front of Pepe, which I think everybody's a little bit surprised with. When you go to the World Cup, you want guys that are hot. It's no different than any other sport where you go into the playoffs. Which teams are going to the playoffs hot?
Yep.
Which teams are going to the playoffs on a cold streak? And you go with the guy that's hot, and I think that's why he's going with Haji. And I think Haji's having a better season in his league. And that's kind of the way it goes. You've got to be hot at the right time, and Pepe is not hot right now.
I think another guy who I think we could argue is hot was, and one of our favorite guys that we talked a lot of time about as FC Cincinnati supporters, is Brandon Vasquez. He finished his MLS season with 18 goals, 8 assists, kind of was the spark behind that run that FC Cincinnati made to their conference semifinals. And I personally was really hoping to see him on the roster. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I was surprised he wasn't on there, but when I look at the names like your Josh Sargent, those kind of guys, I feel like he could have made a bigger impact than some of these backup players.
Yeah, you and I have discussed before. I don't have something against Josh Sargent. I just don't think he's World Cup roster qualified.
Yeah.
I know he plays in the Championship League in England, but I agree. Brandon Vasquez would probably be a better performer. He's got incredible size, incredible strength. You need a guy to sit up top and just hold the ball.
Yeah.
Brandon Vasquez is your guy.
I mean, I'm thinking, late in a game, everybody's, got a back line that's played 80, 82 minutes, and you can bring a big, strong, physical guy like Brandon Vasquez onto the field, and, maybe he doesn't score a goal, but I think he all of a sudden attracts that attention. In a tight game, I think that would be really important.
And we talked about, Pepe not being hot at the moment. Vasquez is on a hot streak, especially this whole season. Yeah. I mean, I think we look back to some of the games. If Vasquez either didn't get an assist or a goal, we probably didn't win that game.
Absolutely. Yep.
And hopefully in the future he can be looked at. I think he's still relatively young.
Yeah, I read a quote from him on The Athletic that he basically said that he spoke with Berhalter, and Berhalter admitted that that Vasquez's play made the decision very tough on him.
Sure.
But he just didn't think Vasquez was the answer this year.
That's the way it goes. Yeah.
All right, so now let's double back to the back line. We're kind of talking, the lock is Zimmerman.
Well, first of all, I think we both agree that the back line is probably going to be the weakness of the team.
Absolutely.
And no real surprises in who he took.
Nope.
But I think we both agree Zimmerman's probably the one lock you can almost guarantee. But the other positions are pretty much up in the air.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have a different back line every game in the opening rounds. And you got DeAndre Yedlin. That's not a guaranteed lock. You got Dest. That's been back and forth a little bit. Tim Breen's been around for a while. Is he going to stick with experience? Or is he going to go somebody young? Right. So there's a lot of fluctuation that Berhalter has to work with here.
Yeah, I think we both, again, I think we agree that Dest is probably that outside, one of your outside backs, at least in that first game against Wales.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, I think Zimmerman is one of your center backs for all 3 games, or as long as you're in play.
I agree with that.
But I think the biggest question mark and what's going to be real interesting to see is who's going to play that other center back role.
That's going to be massive because when you're dealing with a Gareth Bale or an attacking group like England has, they've got to be in sync.
Yeah,
I mean, they could be the greatest center backs in the world, but if they're not in sync, you're going to get exploited.
Yeah,
and I'm on the belief that it could be Aaron Long. It also could be Carter Vickers.
Yeah, they have that Cameron Carter-Vickers, and then a lot of talk about Tim Ream.
I don't know if I can get behind the Tim Ream. I'll be honest with you. I'll be disappointed if Tim Ream starts the game against Wales. Only because if he's buying into the youthful talent, Tim Ream's not the guy you're going to go with.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's going to be his question. It is in that first game, especially. You know, you're going to have the nerves. You're going to have those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
Does he lean toward a DeAndre Yedlin and a Tim Ream to, hey, let's just get into the groove of this. Let's just kind of settle down and get into our play here.
Right.
And then work those younger guys in as they move forward, as they get into play. I wouldn't be surprised if you see halftime switches at this position. I wouldn't be surprised if you see, and a Robinson left back to start the game, and then in the second half you see a Yedlin or something along those lines. But I think that speaks to the fact that this is your weakest group.
It really is. Just mainly because of the unknown.
Absolutely.
No one has been really solid at the entire back line. He's had different lineups almost every game over the last year.
Right.
No one has really been a lock. And
right.
I think we're saying Zimmerman just because he's just a solid, talented player.
Correct.
That you can almost guarantee is going to hold his position there.
And it kind of goes back to that old saying, American football saying, when you say, I have 2 quarterbacks, it usually means you don't even have one.
Right.
And I think that's where we are with this back line with, I think if we polled 4 or 5 different people, hey, write down your 4 starting outside or your 4 back line starters, I think you would get 4 or 5 different combinations.
That's absolutely true.
So it'll be real interesting to see what he does with that. I lean more towards a consistency portion of it. I think he needs to pick something and go with it.
Right.
That's why he's the head coach. He needs to make that decision. And I think, we kind of talked about how we wouldn't be surprised seeing those switches throughout the game, trying different players at those positions. But I believe he needs to pick his floor and go with it.
We agree that the midfield's pretty much set.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any question who the mid 3 is. Pulisic is going to be up there. Ferreira will probably be your starter, and then the other outside winger is going to be up in the air. But he's got to get that back line right.
He does, yep.
Because if the forwards aren't scoring,
correct,
and we're struggling to win possession,
yep,
and your back line isn't in sync,
yep,
we are not going to win many games.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk how scoring could be an issue for us at times, and so
yep.
You gotta trust that back line to do what they're supposed to do, and I think that's the biggest question mark for the United States coming into next week.
And to go back to what we just talked about, we've watched the last couple friendlies, and they really struggled.
Yep.
And I'm sure he's mixing things up a little bit, but we're at a point there when he's doing those friendlies where your guys got to be locked in.
Absolutely.
And it didn't look locked in. They weren't in sync. The possession wasn't there.
Frustrating at times.
Very frustrating. So I think Berhalter's life is going to be dependent on his backline selections.
Yeah, absolutely. They should make a run here. I think you find people who think we're not getting out of the group. I think the honest answer is somewhere in between that. For me, I think they should get out of the group. you know, when you look at the betting odds, which I do on occasion, they they're the second highest favorite to get out of that group, behind England. I know England struggled a little bit in some friendlies last summer and things like that, but I do think England's the team to beat. But I think not getting out of this group for the United States, maybe not qualifying setback like in 2018, but I think it would be kind of a gut punch to a lot of soccer fans.
I'm going to disagree with that. I think if they don't get out of the group stage, it'll be worse than not qualifying the World Cup in 18 because of everything that Berhalter has done. He went full on to this young squad.
Youngest squad in the tournament.
Through Gold Cup, through qualifying, he sold his soul to play in the squad, which I'm all for.
Oh, yeah.
And I think if they don't get out of the group stage, I think we're right back to where we were. What has happened? Why are we not qualifying? And it's going to be problems for Greg Berhalter. I also believe that England does have the most talented squad in our group, but England struggles in World Cups. They struggle in tournaments.
Very true, yeah.
And they have a lot of pressure that their country puts on them, and a lot of them can't handle it. So if we go in, we being the United States national team, if we go in, we own possession, we press, we put a lot of opportunities on there. If we win the first game, it doesn't need to be 4-0. If we win 1-0, but we handle possession, I'm looking forward to the England game.
I saw we've been paired with England twice in World Cup history, and we've beaten them both times,
which is amazing.
Which is
amazing.
So we'll see how that goes. Again, I think I love the World Cup. It's a lot of fun.
It's the greatest tournament.
I'm glad it's somewhere where the times are a little better for us.
Yeah, very true.
For us working people, 2:00 kickoff might be a little difficult, but it's definitely better than what we were dealing with the women's team or last summer.
Absolutely.
Waking up at 4:00 in the morning to see kickoff.
Right.
So, but I'm excited and looking forward to next week. Chris, this was a lot of fun.
Well, let me ask you this: World Cup, where do you think the U.S. gets to?
I think they make the round of 16.
Okay.
I think they come in second in their group. I know England's history, but I also know the United States history.
Right.
And I think they make the round of 16. And then, when you're the runner-up in your group, you're playing somebody, you're playing a winner. You're playing a top of the group. And I think that's going to be really, really tough for them.
It's going to be interesting. And I think it's a tale of two coins here. If they go second in their group, they're probably going to play the Netherlands. And that's going to be a tough game.
It will.
If they find a way to beat England and take first place, they could play somebody like Ecuador. And they have a very solid chance.
Yeah. So are you thinking Elite Eight? What are you doing here?
I can see them making quarterfinals.
Okay.
I really like this talented squad. I think I've seen a lot of great qualifying matches of them dominating great opportunities. And so I think the opportunity is there. If they can handle the pressure once they get out of the group stage, I can see them making some things happen.
And I think what you said earlier is really interesting. Everybody is focusing on the United States versus England for obvious reasons.
Yeah,
but I don't think that's the United States' big match.
It's not.
I think if you come away with 6 points against Wales and Iran,
you're in.
100%. If you show up Monday against Wales and you tie 0-0 or 1-1, then I think you're in a little bit of trouble. You set yourself behind the group, and then it becomes real interesting.
Yes. First match matters.
Yeah,
and I'm glad we're not playing England. Or maybe we should be playing England.
Yeah.
You come in fired up for a game like England instead of looking down the road at that. And, Wales is not going to be a team that's going to be pushed over. Even though they weren't first ones in.
They had a very interesting path.
It was a long road for them.
Yeah,
so
very long road.
Gareth Bale
absolutely
can cause a lot of problems.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, talking about Gareth Bale, I think you're going to have to do what teams do to Pulisic at times. I think take him out of the game. Don't let him be the one that beats you.
Agreed.
And then if you get beat anyway, you can kind of deal with it.
100%. Yes.
All right. Well, it was a lot of fun. And again, we'll be back soon with Olivia Swafford, and we'll get her thoughts on the recruiting process for her. And then hopefully she'll stick around and talk a little World Cup with us. All right. Well, today's been a lot of fun. Thanks for joining the Bluegrass Soccer Academy for today's episode, and we'll see you next time.